guys, this is Bug, and today I want to talk to you about my favorite trick in Palia, which is sinking and floating. Now, most of the time when anyone asks me, how did you do that on anything, on any of my plots, the answer is almost always either sink or float. And believe it or not, they're actually the exact same trick. Like, you might think that you have to learn two different things, but you don't. And I'll show you how to do it. It's the same thing, I promise, so hang tight. So what do I mean when I say sinking and floating? Well, floating is probably easy to understand. It just means things that are floating, like these bees here. You see they're floating up above the ground, or these butterflies too are floating. But it could also mean something like this snail here that's placed at an angle up on a tree, somewhere that you would never expect to be able to place it. Or even these plushies here that are placed on top of the building blocks, somewhere you would never be able to place those ordinarily. Or even this whole section of build that's placed way outside of my parcel boundary lines, which you can see actually ends way over here. And we have so much going on outside of the plot lines. This is all done using float. And what do I mean by sink? Well, I mean exactly the same thing. Instead of something that goes up, something that goes down, like these tables here that make the effect of having water. These are tables that are sunk down into the ground. So let's find out how to do this, and then you can start making some really cool stuff for yourself. So today I'm going to talk to you about 4 different ways to float something and 1 way to sink something. And we're just going over the basics today, so we're not going to get too deep into it. But hopefully by the end of this video, you're going to have learned something that you can take away and make something cool at your own housing plot using just the absolute basics of float and sink. So before we can get into that, the very first thing we're going to have to learn how to do is cancellation. Now, what is cancellation? I'm so glad you asked. I'm going to put down this floor real quick, and I'm going to use this paver on top of this floor to demonstrate what I mean when I say cancellation. So I have placed this paver on top of this floor using left click, and I'm going to do it again right now. I'm going to left click, or if you're on console, you're going to hit A. And by using that action of hitting left click or A, we're telling the server that this paver is now in a new permanent home on top of this floor. If I were to grab this paver and move it over here and left click or hit A, then I'm telling the server, hey server, I've now moved this paver. It no longer lives over here. Its new permanent home is over here on the floor. And that all makes sense, right? So why bother explaining that? Well, because there's also a way that we can put a paver not in a permanent home, but in a temporary home. And that's what we call cancellation. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back over here using left click or A to tell the server once again that this is its permanent home. And I'm going to demonstrate cancellation for you. Now, to use cancellation, all you're going to need if you're on PC is some item on your hotbar that you can place as furniture or decor in your house. And you can see actually my entire hotbar is all objects that I can pull out and place as furniture. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be star focus food as long as it's not jams, which you can't place. It can be a chair, a table, a bush, doesn't matter as long as it's anything that you're able to place on your housing plot. Now, hang tight real quick, PC users. And let's talk about console users. So if you're following along on console, your process is going to be just a little bit harder. And I usually refer people to a really great video by K Fierstein, which I'm going to link below. But I'm going to do my best to explain the process, even though I'm showing you on a PC and I can't show you very well. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your settings right here, and you're going to open up gamepad settings and then controls, and you're going to look for this thing called action bar item use, and you see right now it's set to A. What you want to do is you want to set this button to something that you don't use very often. So if you're on Switch, I know plus is a good one to use because you don't use that while you're in building mode. It's only used for opening your menu, and you can use your menu later. If you exit your house, it'll be perfectly fine and accessible, or you can change this again anytime you need to. If you're on PlayStation or Xbox, I'm not entirely sure what's a button that would be perfect for you, but any button that you don't use to decorate or don't typically need in housing mode is a good one to use right here for action bar item use. And what that's going to do is instead of hitting the A button to pull something out, so I have right now this paver highlighted at the bottom of my screen. You can see I have number 2 paver highlighted. If you hit A previously to pull this out, now you're just going to use your plus button instead. So that's what we mean by action bar item use. And the method of cancellation for if you're on console is basically going to be to jump in the air and really quick grab it while you're in the air. So if B is your button to jump and A is your button to grab, what you're going to do is really quickly hit B, B, A, and when you hit your A, you are going to grab and pick up whatever object it is you're using as your anchor. Now, I really recommend you go watch this video that I'm going to link in my description by Scene. You can see how he does it, but if you've done it successfully, then once you've picked up your paver, you're still going to see your hotbar at the bottom of your screen where you can select different objects to pull out, and you can scroll and use your plus button to pull out another object on top of it. So anytime I'm talking to PC users and I'm going to talk about using a button from my hotbar, like my number 1, you're going to do this BBA and then pull out a button from your hotbar using your plus button. Okay, let's check back in with PC users. Thanks for bearing with us for a second. PC users, it's much easier for you. All you need is to have at least one object on your hotbar that is a furniture object, and you're just going to remember what number it's in. So for me, I have all of these. I can use any number on my keyboard, 1 through 8, but I typically use my number 1 on my keyboard because I always have star focus food on me, so I always know there's something in my number 1 slot. But just for funsies, I'll mix it up and I'll use a couple other buttons too, just to demonstrate. Okay, so let's show moving something using cancellation to put it in a temporary home. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this paver, and again, if you're on console, you're going to grab this using your BBA, and now I'm going to move it over here, but instead of left clicking or hitting A to put it in a new permanent home, I'm going to use cancellation to place it in a temporary home. So on PC, I'm going to hit my number 1 on my keyboard, and you'll see behind me that brought out this burger. And now this burger is highlighted in yellow instead of my paver, but my paver has been left behind where I was holding it before. So I haven't actually placed it. I haven't used left click or A to tell the server that it's in a new spot. All I've done is pull out another object, and the action of pulling out another item off of my hotbar has left this paver behind. So I don't actually want to place this burger, so I'm going to right click to dismiss my burger. And if you look down below at my hotbar, you'll see that the burger is still selected, so I'm going to hit number 1 again to make sure it's unselected. And now our cancellation is complete. Now this paver is in a temporary home, and I'll show you. If I were to switch to another plot and then switch back, you're going to see that everything is back in its permanent home, which means that that paver is no longer going to be on the ground where I moved it. It's going to be back here, the last place I used left click or A to set a temporary home, which was on top of this floor. Cool, right? So let's do that again, a little bit faster this time. I'm going to grab this paver using just left click if you're on PC, or using your BBA if you're on console. I'm going to move it aside to a temporary home, and then I'm going to place it using cancellation. So this time I'm going to hit number 3 on my keyboard to pull out whatever object I have in my number 3 hotbar. So I'm going to hit number 3, and that was this wood floor. If you're following along on console, remember that's going to be your plus to pull out this item, whichever item it is on your hotbar that is placeable in your house. And now I don't want to place this floor, so I'm actually going to right click to dismiss it. And then if you see down on my hotbar, once again, it's still highlighted on number 3, so I'm going to hit number 3 again to make sure it's not highlighted. And now I have this paver in this temporary home over here, but its real home is still the last place I left clicked or hit A, which was over here. So this time I'm actually going to show snapping it into place in a different way. If you're working, say, inside of your house and you're putting something straight on your floor, You might want to leave your plot and come back in, but if you happen to be working on top of some furniture item, any furniture item that you can pick up and put back down easily, this is a much faster way to snap everything into its permanent home. So I'm going to do that this time. I'm going to grab this floor and then I'm going to left click it back into place again. And you'll see when I'm holding this floor, the paver behind it is highlighted yellow and it comes with it. That's because this paver is part of this stack because it was placed on top of this floor. So when I left click this floor back into its place, it's going to set permanent homes for everything in the stack, the floor and the paver, and if something is on top of the paver, it'll do it for that too. So left click the floor, and now we will see our paver snaps back into its permanent home, which was here on the floor, right? Okay, cool. So now we understand how to set a permanent home and how to set a temporary home. So now let's get into our first cancellation using, or our first float using cancellation. So what we're going to do now is the same basic idea. I'm going to grab this paver and I'm going to move it over somewhere else. And instead of placing it using left click or A to set a permanent home, I'm going to place it using cancellation to set a temporary home. So this time let's say number 5 on my hotbar. I don't even know what number 5 is. Let's see. Hit number 5 on my keyboard and this plushie pops out. All right, great. So in the act of pulling this plushie out, I have left the paver behind. It's no longer highlighted and now the plushie is highlighted. But I'm not gonna place the plushie right now. In fact, even if I try to, right now I'm trying to left click, it doesn't want to place. So I'm gonna right click to dismiss it, and then I'm gonna hit number 5 so that it's not highlighted anymore. And now I have finished my cancellation to move this paver to its temporary home. Now to turn this cancellation into a float, the only thing we have to do is to put something on top of the paver now. So now I am actually gonna pull out this plushie. And I'm going to place it on top of this paver using left click this time. So I'm going to left click right there. And remember, left click sets its permanent home. So this plushie's permanent home is both right here in space and also on top of this paver. So if I were to pick up this paver, oops, let me get rid of my plushie. If I were to pick up this paver, the plushie will come with it just like normal. I'm going to right click and put it back in place. But if I were to come move this floor back into place, so I'm going to grab it and I'm going to left click it back into place, and that's going to snap the whole stack into its permanent homes again. So left click. Now you'll see this paver comes back to its permanent home, which we remember was here on this floor, but this plushie is still in its permanent home, the last place it was left clicked, which was over here, but also simultaneously was on top of this paver. So this plushie really is sitting on top of this paver. And if I grab this paver and move it, you'll see the plushie turns yellow and it comes with it because it is still part of this stack. It really is sitting on top of this paver. It just happens to think that the paver is still over here. So if I were to leave my plot and come back, I'll show you real quick. You will see that the plushie is still over there. The paver is still on the wood floor. And the plushie still follows the paver because all of these things are in their real homes, even though it doesn't actually look like the plushie is sitting on top of the paver. So here we have our plushie here. Here we have our paver back on top of the floor. And if I pick up the paver, the plushie still follows along with the paver. So this is all real. This is its permanent home, and it's going to stay like this forever until you tell it otherwise. The act of putting that plushie on that paver turns this paver into what we call an anchor. And in every float or sink that you use, you're going to need an anchor. So if I were to pick up this paver, or try to, I actually can't pick it up because this plushie is sitting on top of it. And if I were to grab this plushie and move it somewhere else when left click it, in the act of doing that, I would be taking it off of this paver, which would remove its float or its sink. So for every float or every sink, you will need an anchor, and unfortunately that anchor is permanent. It has to stay in your scene. You can't pick it up. All you can do is hide it. Now for an anchor, you can always use pavers like what I'm using here. You can use any kind of paver you want, but the wood paver is one option. And pavers are very useful and versatile as anchors because you can keep clicking them and make them different sizes. And pavers happen to be broken right now to where they can only come out as this one size. But ordinarily, if you keep clicking, you can get different sizes of pavers. Some are smaller, some are bigger, and you can use those really teeny tiny ones to make an anchor that's very, very easy to hide in your scene. But you can also use some other options as your anchor, one of which would be the builder's wood floor, which is useful because things that you cannot put on your anchor and carry away with you, like for instance, let's try grabbing a pergola. If I were to try and put this pergola on this anchor, you can see my cursor is on top of the on top of the paver right there. If I try to use this paver as an anchor for the pergola, then when I pick up this paver and move it aside, the pergola doesn't come with it, and therefore I cannot use this paver as an anchor for the pergola. But I can put the pergola on this floor. So if I place it on one of the builder's floors, then when I grab the floor and move it, the pergola comes away with it. So the floors are very versatile for ground placement objects that won't let you place on pavers. And you can also use red presents the exact same way. So right now, at the time of posting this video, we are in the winter light season where you can buy these red presents. And the really fun thing about red presents is that the top surface of the present acts the same as a builder's wood floor or as a ground surface. So I can pick up this present and I can move it around in my scene and hide it, and it's much easier to hide a smaller red present than it would be to hide this larger wood floor. So if you're watching this video right now during winter lights, I highly suggest you go and buy some red presents. They're very, very useful. I buy them by the hundreds personally. But if you've missed winter lights, don't worry. You can still use builder's floors, any kind of builder's floor, to kind of get the same effect. And you don't have to use just the pavers or just the builder's floors or just the red presents. You can actually use any object as an anchor. So anything that has a top surface that's buildable, like a table or even a chair, you can use as an anchor to put something else on top of. You just need to make sure that you have your anchor somewhere in your scene permanently, probably hidden, so that whatever you're floating, you can place it on top of and it will hold that float. Now, let's get back to talking about our float. So I'm going to grab my plushie and show you one more time because it's been a second. Let's start again. So I'm going to grab this paver and I'm going to move it over here. And now instead of left clicking or hitting A, I'm going to place it using cancellation. So I'll hit my number 1 on my keyboard, and that will place that paver behind and pull out our burger. And again, if you're following along on console, you will do your BBA to grab your paver while you're in the air, run over here. You should still see your hotbar if you've done it correctly, and then you're going to scroll over to another item you can place and place it using your plus key or whatever you set your action bar item use to. And now we can dismiss our burger because we don't need it, and make sure we dismiss it so it's not highlighted off of our hotbar either. And now we can grab any object, and in my case I'm going to grab this fox plushie because we're being fox themed with our fox pajamas today. And I'm going to place it on top of our paver anchor using left click. And now when I grab this floor and snap everything back into place, everything's going to go to its real permanent positions. So for the paver, that's going to be here, and for the fox, that's going to be here. But our fox is still actually sitting on top of this paver and will still move with its anchor. So we've just completed our first kind of float. Yay! This is just a straight horizontal float with no up or down. Now what do we use this for? This is used for building off of the edge of your plot. Just like this, you can put your paver near the edge of your plot, and then whatever you had floated on your paver or whatever it is you're using as your anchor will be out here. And that's how you build outside the boundary of your plot. Yay! Alright, So let's talk about our next kind of float, and this is going to be one that actually goes up and down. So to make these, I usually suggest that somebody start by building what we call a rotational tool. So this is just going to be a wall. You can use the wall on your house if it's more convenient for you, or you can use builder's walls. You're going to have a pillar, which I'm going to place on the floor right here. And you're going to have a floor, which you're going to place on that pillar. Make sure you don't place your floor just on the ground, because then it won't actually be attached to your pillar. Lift it up a little bit so that you're placing it actually on your pillar, just like that. And then you're going to have a shelf, and I suggest using this this industrial wall shelf here because it's a nice flat large surface, a little bit larger than some of the other shelves in the game, and I find it easier to work with. So you're going to pick up your pillar and you're going to put it on this shelf, and now you have a nice large area to work with if you're floating something that's going to be too large that can't fit just directly on the shelf by itself. This gives you a lot more working space to do different kinds of floats. So the next float we're going to talk about is going to be one that just goes straight up in the air. So I'm going to take this paver here and I'm going to place it directly under this floor. And now I'm going to do the same thing as before, but I'm going to move it up instead of sideways. Let me actually lower this a little bit just so I can get up there. Okay, so I'm going to take this paver, place it directly under the floor, and then I'm going to move it straight up. And instead of left clicking, once again, I'm going to place it using cancellation. So this time I'm going to hit, let's say, number 3 on my keyboard. Let's see what that is. That's this floor. It brought out a floor. Again, any object will work. So now I'm going to right click to dismiss my floor because I can't place it anyway. And then you see at the bottom of my screen, it's still selected on my hotbar, so I'm going to hit number 3 again to make sure it's not selected anymore. And now I've completed my float. It started down low and it's moved straight up high. And now I'm going to put another plushie on top of it using left click. Bam! So now, when I grab this paver, you'll see the plushie comes away with it. But when I place the paver using left click, remember the bottom of the stack, left clicking is going to send everything to its permanent home. So when I left click this paver like this, it's going to shoot everything into a new permanent home. So my paver has a new permanent home here on the ground, and then my plushie goes to its permanent home relative to the position of the paver. So it's going to follow my paver, but it's going to keep that same float. So this is how we do a straight up and down float. Now this is a favorite one to use, for example, setting something on top of a cooking station in your kitchen. So let's look at how we would do that. First, I'm going to place this prep station right next to my shelf so that I can use it to measure. And then I'm going to lower this shelf so that it's at a position that's almost to the top of the shelf, or almost to the top of the prep station, but actually just a little bit below it because we have to account for the height of our paver. And I'm going to place this here using left click. Let me take my plushie back. And now once again, I'm going to place this paver under this shelf, and I'm going to move it straight up using cancellation. So I'm going to hit my number 1 on my keyboard, which brings out my burger, and right click to dismiss my burger, hit my number 1 so my number 1 isn't selected anymore. And now I'm going to place a plushie on top of it using left click. So now when I grab this paver and I put it on the ground next to this prep station, you'll see that the plushie floats to a level that is right at the top of the prep station, which is exactly what we want. So we can use this to put something on top of our cooking stations or other similar situations where you can't put something on top of something else. And by just bringing it over here, I'm going to place this one prep station here to mark my position. And then I'm going to place my paver here. Oops, I actually, it looks like my plushie went backwards a little bit, so I'm going to point him facing this way for right now, I guess. He's going to be facing the wall like he's in timeout. Poor little guy. And now I can move this paver out of position temporarily and place it using cancellation. So once again, I hit cancellation, not left click to move it out of the way. Its real home is still going to be the last place I left clicked it, which is over here. And now I'm going to place my cooking station here using left click. So my cooking station is now placed using left click in exactly the same place where my paver was last placed using left click. So if I leave my plot and come back in, we'll see that our plushie is now sitting on top of our cooking station. Oh, he looks so sad in timeout. Oh, poor guy. Okay, so let's do that again, actually, and this time I'm going to try and get the position a little bit more correct so he can face forward and not be so sad and lonely. So we were happy with our height, so we don't have to measure the height again. But this time I'm just going to be a little bit more careful about the front to back position of my paver. So I'm going to try and place it pretty much right underneath the front edge of the floor there. And I'm going to move it straight up using cancellation, just like that. And now I can place my plushie on top of it, and I'm going to put him at a little bit of a jaunty angle, just like that, and hit left click. So now when I grab my paver, and I put it over here, once again, using left click, and once again I'm going to mark my position next to where I want him to be using another cooking station. I'm going to get him out of the way temporarily using cancellation. So I'm going to move him over here and cancel him by hitting number 1 on my keyboard to bring out this burger and put him in a temporary spot out of the way. And now I can put my other cooking station in place right where he was. So now let's try again. Let's load to a new plot and load back into the plot we were working on. And now hopefully we should see he is right on top of our cooking station and no longer in timeout. Look at that, he's much happier now. What a sweet little guy. So this is our second method of float we're going to talk about today, which is just going straight up and down. This will allow you to put stuff on top of furniture or other things that you can't normally place on top of. The third type of float we're going to talk about today is very similar to what we just did, but instead of just going straight forward like what we did over here, or going straight up and down like what we did in the kitchen, we're going to do both at the same time. So I'm going to start this paver way over here, and I'm going to left click it into place. And now I'm going to go both this direction and also up and place it on top of my shelf using cancellation once again. So brought out my burger, I'm going to right click to dismiss and then hit my number 1 to dismiss the whole thing. And I'm going to place yet another plushie on top of the paver here. And I'm actually going to turn around this direction. Now this, when I place my paver in left click, remember it went up, so it's going to go down. And it went forward, so it's going to go backward. And now when I left click my paver, I should see my fox shoot forward and up. So that's exactly what he's done. He's gone forward and up. Now whatever the vertical distance and horizontal distance you traveled when you moved your paver, that's going to be the location of whatever it is you're floating. So if you need to hide your anchor somewhere else in your scene a little bit farther away, you can use this method to do that. And something very important to note about this, by the way, is that you can only go a certain number of large squares away from your anchor. Now, I'm not 100% sure what the number of large squares it is. I think it's about 32. I usually try to keep it within like 20 or so large squares, no farther than that. Because if you wind up going too far, you're actually going to see that whatever it is you floated is going to return to your lamp spot at the front of the house right here. So lamp spot, what I mean by that is where if you pick up a house and all of your lamps just float out here, whatever lamps were in your house, this is the lamp spot. This is where everything will return if something has gone astray. So try and keep your anchor not too far away from whatever it is you're floating, and then you can use this method to place something farther away from its anchor. Now, you can also do something fun here, just like we were doing in there, where we temporarily moved our anchor and our fox out of the way in order to place the cooking station. We can do the same sort of idea, but just move just the fox out of the way into a temporary home using cancellation. So I'm going to place him here just temporarily using cancellation. I'm going to hit my number 1 on my keyboard to bring out my burger and dismiss my burger. And now I can actually grab this paver and I can move it a little bit forward to get him on top of something that I wouldn't ordinarily be able to put him on top of. So now I can have him kind of like hanging out on this barrel or doing something cute. I can set him on top of a fence post, or I can set him on top of this hay cart like this hay is here, just by hiding my anchor somewhere else in the scene. So let's see, let's try and get him maybe like right here on this group of boxes, that little corner. So I'm going to move him out of the way again, and I'm going to temporarily put him out of the way using cancellation. And now I'm going to try and move this, just eyeballing it to where I think that box was. Not quite. Okay, let's try again. So he needs to go kind of straight to the side. I'm going to move him out of the way using cancellation. And I'm once again going to try moving this into place, and I'm just going to move it straight to the side like it looked, just eyeballing it. You can also count squares if you want, whatever works for you. Try one more time, a little bit to the right now. I went a little bit too far, so I'm going to place him out of the way using cancellation. And then I'm going to move my paver a little bit to the right. There. And now I have him sitting on this little box here. Now I would want to bring my shelf over here and actually measure the correct height of this box so that he's not floating a little bit like he is here. But this would be a really great way to sit something on top of something that you can't ordinarily sit an object on top of, or a really great way to just kind of decorate objects closer together than what they could ordinarily be. So you can make some really nice clutter using this method and make something really cute in your home. So that was 3 methods of floating. Let's talk about just one more before we move on to sync. Our 4th and final method of floating is going to be what I showed you in the first plot at the beginning of the video, where you saw those insects that were floating kind of at an angle, and this is what we call a rotational float. So for a rotational float, you're going to do everything the same as what we did before, but with rotation involved. Imagine that, right? Now, when you're working with rotational float, the important thing to remember is that whatever is up for your anchor is always going to be up for your anchor. So if I place this paver down, this broad wood side, this is what faces straight up in the air. And no matter how I'm going to rotate my anchor to start with, when I pick it up again, it's once again going to be placed exactly like this with the wood pointing straight up in the air. And the way that I kind of help myself out remembering that is by using the pillar on my rotational tool here. So I'm going to place my paver right in front of my pillar, kind of centered on the pillar, so that I can use this pillar as a visual guide to show me what the paver's up is going to be. And it makes it just a little bit easier on myself. Now, also, we know that our paver is always going to point straight up whenever we pick it up and put it down again. So in order to do a rotational float, it's actually not the thing that's floating that's going to rotate. It's actually the anchor that's going to rotate. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this shelf like this. Now I'm going to left click it to make this position permanent. We have this anchor placed on this shelf using left click, and then we have this shelf rotated also using left click. So this is its real position at this point in the world, and also rotated like this. And what we're going to want to do now is we're going to want to build another rotational tool, or at least just another couple of walls with a floor on it. And we want this floor to be kind of pointed at the up. So we're going to follow the line of this up with this pillar, and we're going to point up using our second wall here. So I'm going to put it actually kind of pretty close to the pillar so we can use that as a nice easy guide. And the floor is just right kind of in line with where this pillar is pointing us. And now once we've got this here, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our paver and move it up here to a new temporary home using cancellation. So I'm going to hit my number 1 on my keyboard, bring out that burger and dismiss it. And now we're going to grab our plushie and put it on top of the paver while it is up here. So I can rotate this a little bit how I want it, maybe kind of like that. And I'm going to left click it into place while the paver is up here. So the paver's real home is down here and pointed to the right. When we pick up the paver is going to recorrect itself to the left. So whatever direction we rotated our shelf, the paver, or whatever we're floating, is actually going to go the opposite direction. So if I wanted this plushie to point to the right, I would have wanted to tilt this shelf to the left, for example. But now I'm going to pick up my paver and place it, and now I should see my butterfly goes up and rotates to the left. And there it goes. So its position is relative to where we put this floor, which is not exactly in line with our pillar. See, our pillar actually goes a little bit to the side here. It's a little bit off to the right side, just like our floor was, and then tilted to the left. So if you want to decorate with things that are floating at an angle and rotated, this is how you would want to do that rotational float, just like that. And let's find this a nice little home. And there we have it. So this is the basics of float. This is all of the basic uses you will have for float. And now there's one thing left to discuss, which is syncing. So let's talk about syncing. So a lot of people think that sync is a totally different trick than float, and you have to learn the two individually, but that's actually not the case. They're actually the exact same thing. The only difference is one goes up and one goes down. So let me demonstrate real quick using the pavers like we've been using before. So when we float something, we put the paver on the bottom, and then we move it up to cancellation place it to put something on top of it, like this. And that will cause something to move upwards. We call that a float. But if we do that in the exact opposite order, so if we start with a paver up high, and then we cancellation place it down low to place something on top of it, now we get what we call a sync. And if I place this paver, you'll see the present actually disappears because it shoots underground. You can kind of see it, the yellow outline, just right there behind my avatar spinning around a little bit. So that present is completely hidden underground. Or if I were to move the paver up high like this, now you can once again see that present appear underneath its paver. So what is the point of doing syncs? Well, there's a few things that you could use sync for, but I'm going to explain to you today one of my favorite uses of the sync method, which is to create water for your plot by using capital chic dining tables that are dyed blue or shore color. And I'm going to show this instead of using pavers for my anchor. Now I'm going to be using the wood builder's floors. So let's see how that works. Now if you don't know, you can actually hook these floors together by kind of positioning it not here on the ground where it's going to place as part of the ground, but put your cursor at the end of the floor and it will snap so that when I pick up this floor, that other floor will come with it. And you can save yourself a little bit of time when you're doing a large float like one of these water tables would be by building yourself a little floor first so that there's only one object you need to float, which will be the bottom object, the root object for this whole section. And by building this floor so that all of the floors are linked to this one, I can just grab this one floor and the whole section comes with it. Now this is going to make our lives a lot easier to sync these tables. So let me put some tables down here. I'm just going to place them 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can align them kind of a little bit prettier, make sure they're all nice and touching. It helps to hit Z to turn off that grid like this so that you can kind of scoot them a little bit closer together than you would have been able to do if you're working in grid mode. And now you have these tables that are parented to this one floor. So when I pick up this floor, all of the tables come with it. Now this is a much easier way to do this, in my opinion, than syncing each of these tables individually, having to get the height exactly right for each one, having to get the position exactly right for each one. You can just position them at your leisure like this and have them all rooted to a single object, and then that single object is the only thing you need to sync. So let's place these here next to our rotational tool, and just like we did with the prep station for the kitchen, we're going to try and judge this shelf to where it's just a little bit below the tops of those tables. So we have this shelf here, this floor here just lands a little bit below the top of the table, and that's about where we want to put this. Now I'm going to use another floor because remember we need to have an anchor, and this floor that all the other floors are connected to is actually not our anchor, that's actually what we're going to be floating. So let's add another floor to be our anchor, and I'm going to put this floor right here. And now I'm going to grab this floor and I'm going to move it down and to the side just like we did for that fox over there. Get it nice and out of the way, and I'm going to place it using cancellation. So I'm going to hit my number 1 on my hotbar to bring out my burger and dismiss my burger. And now I can pick up my whole stack using just this one piece here and place it on top of this floor. Right, so now we have this entire stack, these 4 tables and these 4 floors are all parented to this one floor at the bottom that is the anchor for this entire situation. So when I place this floor now on the ground, all of these tables are gonna go down and they look kind of like water. We can decorate around it, make it look a little bit more natural, you know, maybe put some like stepstones across it, whatever we want to do. We can put some terraces around it or some rocks around it to blend it in with our landscaping. But now we have this great cool little water effect that we can use on our plot. And we did this using the exact same method that we've been floating all along. The only difference was that we started with our anchor up high and then went low. So our first couple of floats, we started low and our anchor moved up high, right? But this time we placed it with left click up high and moved it using cancellation down low. And that is literally the only difference you will find between sync and float. So now you have this cool little situation, this cool little scene that you can put somewhere in your plot. You can hide this floor wherever you need to, get it a little bit out of the way, hide it under a bush maybe, just like this. And now you can build yourself this cool little pond using sync. So now we've covered 4 basic uses for float, 1 for sync, and a few extra tips along the way. I really hope you got something useful out of this and that you can go home and make something cool. See you next time, builders!